supporting these business owners to become business leaders will allow them to really also be champions for the communities that they work in. I know Miami is bringing a lot of outside startups and techs, and there are a lot of incentives to do that, and I think that's wonderful. But I also think economic empowerment for those small business owners can have that meaningful impact.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, disruptors, and creators who are making things happen. My name is Michael T. Johnson, and I'm here with my co-host, Tyler Kelly. And we're here in beautiful Miami today at Venture Cafe Miami. If you're not familiar, Venture Cafe is the largest gathering of innovators, entrepreneurs, disruptors who are making things happen. They gather every Thursday night in cities across the world. And if you're near one of those, I suggest you check it out. So I'm very excited today because we have a special guest. His name is Romi Bhatia. Thank you for being on the show.
Pleasure to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So Romi is the executive director of the Idea Center at Miami Dade College, which is an entrepreneurship and innovation engine, the engine of MDC, Miami Dade College. You're passionate about public service and empowering people who want to pursue the entrepreneurial pathway. You have extensive background in international development, and you've been all over the world, so that'd be a good conversation.
Sure.
By way of George Washington University
Yeah,
to Miami.
I used to teach there. I was in Washington. I worked at USAID, and I also taught.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we're excited to have you on the show. And
Thank you. Thank you for
excited
having
to
me.
talk about Miami and the Idea Center and all the things that inspire you.
Awesome.
So welcome.
Thank you.
So first, before we talk about the Idea Center, I want to talk about Miami Dade College because I think just Miami Dade College itself is doing some very, very big things, which I think you could probably speak to before we jump into what you do specifically.
Sure. Yeah, so the college, which is an amazing college, is the reason I wanted to come to this entrepreneurship center about a year and a half ago, is a college that is today the largest institution of higher education in the country.
Yeah.
So we have about 165,000 students, but more than just the number of students we have, it's the incredible programming that we have. We're just coming on the heels of the Emerge Americas conference where we announced our partnership with Tesla. So MDC and Tesla put together a partnership for what's called Tesla Start. So students, you would enroll into MDC, go through training at one of our 8 campuses. So we are all over Miami-Dade County, where we're actually building out a Tesla, a maintenance facility where the training would happen. Go through that training, be certified, and go right into a job with Tesla. And to do that, to do it in what we call an earn and learn model, where you don't have to forego going to college because you need to do the job you need to support your family, is pretty powerful, especially for our community. So that's one of our recent initiatives. Of course, we announced a partnership with Facebook. The college is it's an impressive place. It's been a pillar in the community for a very long time. Just in the last year and a half or so that I've been with the center, we've announced a partnership. We launched our Cybersecurity Center of the Americas. Again, another key area where we're seeing the trends in this knowledge-based economy where we need to make sure our students are getting the skills to be equipped to go into the workforce or to start their own venture. The college is really impressive in terms of being able to forecast what's going to be needed and building partnerships to get there. So, but yeah, I could go on and on. There are a lot of initiatives, a lot of new partnerships at the college, and that's why I think presents us as the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation a great opportunity, because to me, entrepreneurship it's not something that rests within the School of Business. It is cross-disciplinary, and so I have so many on-campus academic department institutes that we have where what we teach could be really, really valuable for our students. So.
Yeah, and from what you just said and from what I've heard about Miami-Dade College and the community, I just love that they're making education as accessible to as many people as they can. Right.
When we hear enough about college debt, I think recently on NPR they were talking about $30,000 is the average debt a student goes into when they come out that they're having to deal with. Miami-Dade College is not only affordable and accessible, but the high quality education is key, and especially today when there are many students debating whether they should even go to college. You certainly can benefit a lot from the education, but you have to be able to find it to be reasonable. And we have a large number of our students that receive financial aid, even with the fact that we're very low cost. Many students couldn't come to MDC if it wasn't for federal financial aid. So
you talked a little bit about how college, the current perception is maybe college isn't going to be something I can apply to my life, in the real world.
Right.
But MDC is different in the sense that it allows the students to gain real world experience, and specifically the Idea Center. So tell me about, your approach to education.
Yeah.
Real world. Let's call it real world education.
Sure. Yeah. So as much as we can bridge the gap between what our students, and just to preface, the Idea Center serves both students and community. So when I say an MDC student, I don't necessarily mean student that's just on a degree track. You could, through the School of Continuing Education, where we offer our programming, come into MDC, come into the Idea Center to take advantage of that. So you could be a working professional, you could be coming back to school, you could be a 19-year-old in their first or second year of college, and that's our makeup. So the average age is about 25, 26 years old is the MDC student. It just means that when you are seeing what you're seeing in the job market and you're coming to school, you don't want there to be such a big disconnect. So whether that's in computer science, in culinary, in fashion, in animation and gaming, there's a whole host of academic programs that we have. Where I see us really be that bridge or that glue that brings things together is that irrespective of those technical skills or the subject matter expertise you gain, you need to be able to develop the entrepreneurial mindset, because that speaks to not just launching a venture, it speaks to being able to identify your passion, being able to take risk, being able to learn and adapt, become resilient, overcome obstacles. So creativity, complex problem solving. There's a really good World Economic Forum report on the future of work, which highlights the top 10 skills in the workforce today. And we're getting at a lot of those at the Idea Center with the way we're doing our teaching. So my view of what we teach is not just what the topic is. So it's not just about teaching the fundamentals of blockchain technology by running one of our business blockchain workshops. It's how we teach. So much of what we do at the Idea Center is experiential learning. So that's key, right? So if you can take what you're learning, understand the fundamental concepts, and apply it in class, you're going to be less reluctant to say, you know what I'm learning isn't relevant, because it is. It's project-based, or you're applying it to real-world projects or applications. And then if you're learning it in a classroom environment where you're not just learning with everyone that has a shared or similar experience, but they come from very different backgrounds, well, guess what? That adds a dynamic aspect to the classroom learning that you wouldn't get otherwise. So our students at the Idea Center, our youngest, we might beat this record, has been 13.
Wow.
Who took coding first and then web development, front-end web development, homeschooled. But the two parents brought both of their students to someone, there's really no upper age limit, but someone who's had many years of industry experience, let's say in the marketing world, and now is making a career shift and wants to learn more about data analytics. So what we try to do is to make sure the emerging trends and technologies that we're seeing around the corner, that we can bring that content into the academic environment. We use the Idea Center actually as a way to pilot new courses and gain traction and get the customer feedback. The things that you hear about with a startup, right? You want to test, you want to iterate. We're doing that with academic content. And then once it has that validity, then let's say our School of Engineering, Design, and Technology can put together a college credit certificate on IoT. So we're one of the first in the state of Florida to offer that as a CCC. But the pilot of that was done at the Idea Center with 2 courses. So that's kind of how I view the education piece. You have to make sure the learning outcomes, there's rigor to it, but it's very valuable to have practitioners come and teach, but also understand you're teaching now, right? You're teaching to a different audience, a dynamic audience, so understanding how to impart that knowledge is key, and so we vet for that, of course. But the real world application, students experience it with us, and I think that's why they're interested to take more courses. But it also has to fit their schedule. So the other aspect of what we do at the Idea Center, which is a little bit different, than the colleges. We will run semester-length courses or 8-week courses as it aligns with MDC. But we might also just run a crowdfunding workshop, series of 4 sessions twice a week, because that suits the needs of both our students who already have an academic course load, and also the working professionals who are interested in that and want to be able to take that outside of their work hours. So the modality of how we teach it is very flexible. I figure we have to be true to our name. If we're going to be the Idea Center, we also have to be entrepreneurial in the way we think about how to deliver education, because what we're seeing is we are at a time, I think, where there's a more like a la carte, meaning our students are demanding what they want to learn rather than being at times force-fed what they think needs to be learned. So we're receptive to taking that input to design our courses. So anyways, I wanted to give you a sense of it from a few different angles. So hopefully that helped answer your question.
Yeah. When we look at education as a whole, I mean, it sounds like what you're doing at the Idea Center is pretty innovative and maybe on the cutting edge of what's happening in the education world. But a lot of times we talk about disruption on this show, and people that are kind of disrupting industries that have been sitting in the status quo for a long time. And I think education is one of those things that's kind of ripe for disruption. So maybe like for educators or educational institutions, what do they need to be prepared for to like bring value to students and people as we go the next 10 to 20 years?
Great question. Education is ripe for disruption, and I would argue that we're probably doing some of that disrupting ourselves, but being part of a large institution within the institution allows us a little bit more latitude and space, so that I actually have in some of our workshops MDC faculty, part-time, adjunct, or even full-time, taking our courses. Right? So if you start with the premise of being lifelong learners and being open to that, certainly if you've been teaching a subject for 10, 20 plus years, you have a demonstrated expertise. I would never discount that, but the world around us is changing and being disrupted. So how do you stay up to speed with that? How do you bring that into your classroom? Because your ultimate goal is to positively impact these students. So what we call with MDC, our MDC community, our students, faculty, and staff, I look at them as my audience for the Idea Center. It's not just students. And we've done a few things. So our methodologies that we use to teach a lot of our courses, so we blend it, but we really focus on the design thinking approach, combined with the business lean startup methodology and the business model canvas. Now you might say, okay, that's great for startups, but there's actually a lot of that you can take to help foster innovation within a large institutions. Corporates are already doing it, you know that. I think so many large corporates are setting up innovation labs, etc. Well, we're seeing that there is a receptivity to it at MDC. They just didn't know that something like design thinking can help them address the fact that there's low recruitment for a particular program. So there are folks who are decision makers, stakeholders, sitting around the table thinking the value of this is really important, but how do we get to our audience? But they might have been going through the same ideas. We've taken them through a design thinking workshop, half day, and it helps them reimagine what could be possible. And so that's kind of how I'm viewing that even the education space can innovate. There just has to be an open-minded and receptivity to it, open-mindedness. And thus far, again, in the year and a half I've been at MDC, I have met countless individuals who they're more than their title. There might just be somebody, for example, a staff person in media services I'm talking to and is doing a master's on the side and has a business venture. I had no clue, right, that this person was doing all this and came to one of our design thinking workshops. So I'm realizing more and more the colleges need it, but the faculty and staff and the leadership of MDC in particular has been very open to allowing us to kind of be part of that disruption, because we have the right intentions in mind. We want the institution to continue to grow and evolve, the center, and so work closely with our academic deans and our chairs. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. But I think innovation, we're trying to disrupt ourselves a little bit, in a positive way, hopefully.
So you were talking about earlier, you were talking about like the skills that are needed in the careers of the future, and you just mentioned some things like design thinking and things like that. The careers in the future, like what are the skills that are going to be needed? Because I would guess from our conversation, it's not a very specific like finite skill set of like, you need to know this programming language or you need to know this. It's a bigger skill set, maybe.
It is.
So what are those top skills that are needed in the future?
Yeah, there are quite a few. There's actually about 14 that have been identified, and I'll cite the study for this. So I don't forget the name, Burning Glass Technologies. So quick context, Miami-Dade College is part of a business higher education forum. It's a consortium of about 45 universities and corporates to talk about where institutions of higher education are teaching and what corporations need, what the industry needs, where the gaps are. And one of the things that was done by this consortium was commissioning of a study by Burning Glass Technologies, looking at over about 192 million job postings, announcements today, pulling apart from that, what are the skills, not necessarily what are the job functions, but what are the skills needed or that are in high demand. And we're talking here things that, too often we say soft skills, but I would just call them like vital skills that you need. Creativity, right? Complex decision making, team building, data analytics, data manipulation, data interpretation, because we're living in a data-driven world. Emotional intelligence. Sometimes that gets overlooked. I mean, I don't know how many of our professors talk about it, but we talk about it. Understanding that team building, collaborative learning. I mean, if you think about it, project management, these are the type of skills. We know that our students, or even in this day and age, we're going to change our careers 4, 5, 6 times potentially. Well, what's the next generation going to do? Likely that. So what are those transferable skills, whether they're in the supply and logistics industry to then tourism? And Burning Glass Technologies really, I think, pointed this out. So there are about 14 skills. I don't remember them all offhand, but some of the ones I mentioned are really critical, and we really try to get at that. So they relate to just human cognitive ability, but also the things that are needed for any organization, the cohesion that you need to be able to manage projects, build teams, inspire, lead. Sometimes you could be this, like you said, you could be the smartest and have the best written code for your startup, and you can't find a partner to work with. And so that's really important. So we focus on those in any of the courses that we teach. We try to bring those elements in.
So I want to talk a little bit about outcomes.
Yeah.
I know one of your passions and your purpose is economic empowerment.
Yes.
And so let's talk about MDC. The profile of the school is it's not a George Washington or a Columbia University, right? It has a different makeup.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about some of those economic outcomes that you've seen just through the short time you've been at the Idea Center.
Sure. Thanks, Tyler, for that question. It's a year and a half does fly by pretty quick. So just by way of reference to my focus on economic empowerment, I got my career start working in microfinance. So really the base of the pyramid, providing financial services to the poor. I did that in many, many developing countries and different regions, and seeing the economic empowerment that would result from women who had never been looked at by banks, and instead organizations now arose to help provide them kind of that hand up rather than the handout, to me was really, really powerful. So I'm now in an academic environment in a city where there are some serious challenges that we faced. I think they're well known to people, but just to highlight affordable housing, living wage, the poverty level, that's reflected also in some aspects in our students. And I know sometimes it doesn't get, we don't maybe talk about it as much, but it's true, right? So 2/3 of our students at Miami Dade College have a part-time job, and about 45% live at or below the poverty line. So when they leave the campus, they go back to their communities. They are in those circumstances that I saw working in those communities in developing countries. So one of the first things that I did when I started at the Idea Center is that I prepared a grant proposal, and it was to reach out to the TD Charitable Foundation to ask them to support a program for us to support local small businesses in and around Miami-Dade County that were in underrepresented communities. So I love everything about what CIC and where we are here in Wynwood, but there are a lot of communities in Miami-Dade County that don't have access to the resources and tools. And so the program was intended to support those businesses, understanding that in today's digital economy, under technology, being more adept at digital marketing, those tools, a variety of tools, are just as important. So we launched this program in March of 2017, thanks in large part to not just the TD Charitable Foundation, but TD Bank has really been on board in terms of their involvement in the program. And what we have seen, so it's called Scale Up Miami, is that we have reached about 75 small businesses in and around Miami-Dade County. And we've been focusing on the fundamentals that they need to establish for their business growth. It's a bit early to talk about impact. We're starting to see changes that result from it. I think impact and a rigorous evaluation of that takes a little bit more time, so we are in the process of doing that. But in terms of seeing these businesses become, or getting onto the pathway of having a clear growth plan to be viable businesses, so that we don't continually cite that Miami's number one in startup activity, but overlook or understate the fact that we're 36 out of 40th, I believe, in scaling up. We can focus on, so what's the effect of this? What's the multiplier? Well, sustainable businesses rooted in their local communities, not only is there circulation in terms of the income and the economic opportunity, but their peripheral benefits, right? So in supporting these business owners to become business leaders will allow them to really also be champions for the communities that they work in. And that is really important to me. I know Miami is bringing a lot of outside startups and techs, and there are a lot of incentives to do that, and I think that's wonderful. I grew up in the Bay Area, so I was used to seeing that when I was growing up, as the Silicon Valley of today grew. But I also think economic empowerment for those small business owners and organizations. I mentioned business owners. We also have a program for local organizations that are social enterprises, can have that meaningful impact. So I'm eager in, let's say, the next year or two to have an impact evaluation done to assess how well we're reaching those goals. I can tell you anecdotally, many of these businesses are already making a mark, and I don't want to minimize it to just the number of jobs created or revenue. Yes, there will be some of that, but some of these are small businesses that have many other benefits, because again, if you're serving a community, you're in a community where others, small business owners, see you starting to grow, that also brings added support. So that's one of the areas of focus. And of course, the other thing I'll mention just briefly is we are designated as one of the 45 institutions of higher education. We are called an Ashoka U Changemaker Campus. So Ashoka recognized the work that we were doing to bring social innovation and change making into higher education. And what that means is our students are really getting into the topics that I talked about, the issues, and grappling with climate change, affordable housing, inadequate transportation, public safety. And the way they're doing it, we're guiding them through that in terms of our work. We have a director of change-making initiatives at the college, Sandra LaFleur, who works out of the Idea Center and is really bringing the MDC faculty, students together to start to activate collective action. And that's where change happens, that isn't relegated to a startup or business, that I'm also excited about. So that's the whole entrepreneurial mindset that I was describing. It doesn't necessarily need to be just for startups. What we teach for students who want to launch startups also can apply to change making in their local communities. And that's starting to happen. We work with the local UN chapter to address the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which are global, but let's bring them to the local level. Yeah. And you guys know Miami's got there are things we love about Miami, but it's got its fair share of challenges that we're trying to tackle collectively. So.
I read, Romi, recently that over half of our economy is powered by small businesses.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, like you said, how many jobs that might create, or the revenue numbers, sometimes they're just not trackable.
Yeah.
But I think what's important is to be able to have an impact in those communities. Like you said, it's that mirror, it's that seeing it being done by somebody that's like me,
Yeah.
it gives me the confidence that maybe I can do it too.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely
That's
true.
impact you can't measure.
Yeah, that's true. No, I think this is very true. We run Goldman Sachs 10,000 small businesses out of the Idea Center, and so those are businesses a little bit further along who do have those metrics, and I'm pulling those folks in when I can to serve as mentors for the other small business owners. So again, it's that the intangible benefit, paying it forward, which I think we will see. We'll see that in a more connected community. I know everyone can get into the habit of saying, well, everything is siloed. Yes, I saw that when I arrived here, but it's incumbent upon people like me in positions like myself and other centers and other organizations to break those silos and start building those connections. That's what I think is our responsibility. So,
Romi, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you or get involved in what you're doing at the Idea Center, or like, where can people find you?
Easy. So first, in the virtual space, it's theideacenter.co. It's our website. My email is rbhatia, rbhatia@mdc.edu. Always just email me directly if you have questions. I would love then to host anyone interested in knowing more about the Idea Center. Come visit us. Let me give you a tour. Let me have you look into our programs, see what might be relevant for you. I think the face-to-face communication is just as important as online, but we're very active on social media as well, on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So because we have such a wide array of audiences, we try to reach them in different ways, but I always value the in-person meeting. So reach out to me and my team, and let's see if we can be of help to you here in Miami.
Romi, it's been fun. Thank you for being on the show.
Of course. Thanks, guys.
For more episodes, visit innovationcity.co and be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. If you're in Miami, visit us at Venture Cafe on Thursday nights. You can find details at venturecafemiami.org and connect with us on social at WeAreSlam and Venture Cafe MIA.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where